One of the differentiators between a great organization and an average organization is the issue of culture. Research has shown that culture can differentiate between people who want to work with you, stay with you long term, high level of talent wanting to join your team. It even makes the difference between how many people quit your organization, how many lawsuits your organization may face. All of those things are shaped by this one simple word, culture. Here at the Center Consulting Group, we've worked with hundreds of organizations and businesses, churches, nonprofits, and we find that over and over again, our team is talking about the simple word culture. Dave, Paul, what would you say is the culture of an organization? Let's take that elusive term and really find out what it means.
Yeah, lots of books written about it, lots of conversations and YouTubes about it. For me, it boils down to how do things work around here? We work really hard at orientation and onboarding and trying to bake culture into those things. Culture is not just what we say on paper. It's really the often unseen, unspoken atmosphere that exists in an organization that says, are these things we can talk about? Are there things that we don't talk about here? How do we handle conflict? Are we allowed to be innovative? Is someone threatened by my innovation? All those things are evidences of culture.
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody recently who was making a job change because of a shift of culture, meaning they found the culture to be very attractive at the time of hire years ago. But you have changes in culture, leadership changes. They change the way things are done around here, as you mentioned, Paul.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it doesn't feel the same, even so the mission's the same. Dave, how about you? What do you do to define culture?
Well, you've probably heard it said, as I have, that culture eats strategy for lunch, meaning if you have a great strategy and a poor culture, it's not going to matter. So culture, I think at the granular level, is what do we affirm versus what do we allow? So if whatever you affirm, you're going to get more of. Whatever you allow will go to the weakest common denominator. So I know from the experience we've had over the many years of trying to hire exactly the right people for culture, that's the conversation that dominates every level in our organization. So while there is this element of mood contagion often trickling down from above, if the people that are in the rank and file doing the work on the front lines don't get it, it won't matter. So culture has to permeate, and I think that's one of those things to test for. Do the people at each level understand what are we trying to be, not just what we're trying to do?
So let's go further with that very theme. When you go into an organization, when I go into an organization, what are we looking for? In other words, how do we assess culture?
Sure. And you do a lot of listening. So when we go into an organization, they often throw the top leaders at us. Interesting, but not altogether helpful. I really enjoy working with middle level and then frontline folks to say, how do things really work around here? And that's where you get perhaps more of the honest view of what the culture looks like. I've run organizations, and I like myself enough to say, I think I can set the culture from here. The real investment for me is in the mid-level managers, because they are both receiving and expressing culture. So that's the group I like to talk to up front and really get a sense of how things truly work in the organization.
Good points. How about you, Dave?
Well, I agree so much with Paul, and I would say, Jay, let's check into our memory a little bit. When we worked with churches over the years, they often would have statements, ministries about people, right? But yet the cover of their book, the thing that they show is their buildings, right? So they're saying in the public way, look at our buildings, look at our programming, instead of look at the product of the lives changed. Who's benefited because of our culture, right? The end user is not just the employee. It's the people that are being touched by the quality of the work that you do, and the mission that you're trying to accomplish, whether that's in a religious setting or not, What's your mission? And is everybody on board? Look at the product. That'll tell you a lot about your culture.
Interesting that you mentioned covers of what's on the book or what's on the manual or what's on the postcard or whatever. Edgar Schein, one of the premier father figures of organizational culture theory, talks about this issue. The first level of culture are artifacts.
Yes.
You don't always know what artifacts mean, but they mean something, right? And so that would be an artifact. You walk into an organization and you see something, you feel something, you read something. You may not know exactly what led to that, but there's some cultural meaning behind those symbols.
And that's why just walking around can be so helpful. You walk into an organization, is there a lively buzz going on? Are people collaborating? Is there energy in the building? Or is it locked down, doors are shut, we're not talking to one another, I'm focused on me, my tasks, and my success? That's a recipe for exhaustion and isolation.
I remember one time, Paul, we were, it wasn't you and I, it was another consultant and I, we were going to an organization and one of our things was doing a culture assessment. We couldn't get in the building. We kept walking around the building, trying every door. We couldn't get in. We finally get in and the meeting room that we're meeting in is a mess. It's got clutter everywhere. There's piles of stuff. And so we identified these artifacts. They had no clue about them.
Right.
I said, this feels like a family. And you don't care if the house is messy for family. But what happens when you have guests come into your building and they just started laughing because they did not view, they didn't even see the mess until we pointed it out, which is a good reminder of why sometimes it requires external people. Edgar Schein talks about that some. External people can see culture faster than internal people because they're not familiar with it, you know?
And they're willing to tell the truth. And if you're going to really impact culture, not just through external, but through internal, there has to be this, I call it just frank honesty. Can we talk about things that a lot of organizations don't talk about? If you want to have an impact on culture, it has to begin, I think, with some honesty, including our place is cluttered up. When you were talking, I was thinking dysfunctional family because they don't know how to clean up or rise to the occasion that we're having company.
Well, let me put each of you on the spot. One culture breaker and one culture maker that you've deemed to be so important that it rose up to that level. One breaker, one maker.
Yeah. I'll resonate with what Dave said. Tolerating bad behavior because you're going to get more of it.
So that's a breaker.
That's a breaker.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, I think of character or the integrity element of character, because if that's lacking, it's very hard to put your trust. No matter what they say, no matter how smiley they are, warm and friendly, if they're not trustworthy and they've lost credibility and are doing nothing to try and restore that, it's just like, nah, no thanks. I'll check out.
Yeah.
I have a friend who runs a company, and one of his hallmarks is open and honest communication. And that's not just down the organization, it's also up the organization. Am I, as a leader, willing to hear the things I don't want to hear and not just put them in a box, but actually listen and respond? That changes culture.
Yeah, how many times have we measured, at least intuitively, if they can't solve conflict, right? They will never be able to build a culture, regardless of how well defined it is on the walls by fancy posters and nice sayings.
Right.
They got to be able to resolve conflict. One of the things to me that makes the difference is, and I alluded to it earlier, is that sense of passion or mood that the vibe in the organization is, we're glad we're here to serve you. We're not just here to get a paycheck. We have a mission that's bigger than ourselves. And that can be in a for-profit setting. That can be in a not-for-profit or a faith-based. But that passion, does it permeate? And, how many times have we come in and the first person we meet is a cranky receptionist? And it's like, whoa, Don't answer the phone, please. Don't let anybody see you. Yeah.
Dave, you and I one time were in a client setting where that cranky receptionist actually was using cuss words left and right. It was the strangest experience.
It was.
But it told us a lot about
It
the
did.
culture of that organization
Yeah.
and the tone that was set right from the beginning of walking through the door.
Yeah. And I think we even talked to the leader about that, and he's like, what can I do? I'm powerless.
I was thinking, I know exactly what to tell that leader to do. You go first. You be the warm, welcoming voice that sets the tone.
Yeah.
Often the higher we go up in leadership, the less visible we are, and we walk through a reception area and don't even talk to someone. And we miss that opportunity to set culture.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I would conclude with is we know that culture is set from the top down as far as tone and tenor. And it's also set in the way you do hiring.
Yeah.
And if you want quality culture that is healthy, productive, fruitful, vibrant, you have to screen at that for as important of a value as any other trait for the person that you're hiring. So, well, thank you, men.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
your
you.
feedback on this important term. I encourage you to visit our website for other valuable resources, videos, and we have a number of blogs, and probably in the hundreds now, as well as articles, and you can learn more about what the Center Consulting Group does to partner with organizations in their goal of being healthy and effective.